Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. I'm your co-host, John.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening. I'm Amanda.
Welcome, welcome. And Amanda and I, we've been brainstorming, coming up with something, of course, incredible to talk about. And, honestly, this one kind of fell into our lap because, of course, last week was Dental Assistant Recognition Week, right, Amanda?
It was a great week. Of course, we all know that this event comes up every March, and there's this um, pressure or lack thereof pressure of planning with offices, maybe of how we're going to step in and recognize our dental assistants that are bringing a lot to the table. We all know our knowledge that we have and the asset that we're bringing. We help with our patient education and our day-to-day tasks are a lot. We're always saying we wear many, many hats as a dental assistant. So, with that said, did we or did we not get recognized? What did we get recognized with that we were happy with or maybe not happy with? So uh, John and I are pretty well balanced on understanding both sides of this scenario of the week. What do you say, John?
I I completely agree. I think that as an office, if you're an office that is constantly booming and bragging about all the numbers you're bringing in, I think that when it kind of falls on that week and there's no mention of appreciation, there's no box of chocolates, there's absolutely nothing. I think it could be very disheartening. So I can see the assistance side of it as far as, wow, I bust my tail all year. All I hear about is all these record profits, and they can't even say a simple thank you or get me a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. I can see that. And then I can also see if an office is and not booming and they don't recognize anyone, they don't, buy that proverbial pizza, and now everybody's kind of mad, like, oh, I can't even believe, I think that there's this perspective, this perception that dentists are millionaires, right? Everybody's like, oh, they're rich, that's all I hear about is, oh, all these rich, these cheap, these rich cheap dentists, that's all you hear about. And the more and more that you're in these group with dentists and you start to understand the numbers, like that's not necessarily the case. The average dentist graduating college right now is carrying over $500,000 in debt. And the average salary for a dentist is somewhere in the 167,000 range. So, when you look at those numbers, uh, the majority of these dentists are not rolling in money. So, but that being said, it doesn't take much to show appreciation. You know, I think it depends on the person um, receiving that. That's where the slight might come from. We always talk about the five languages of love, or even the languages for a coworker, and what they are. Is it appreciation? Is it gifts? Um, so I think it's very easy to get caught up in that. Oh, my office doesn't appreciate me. My employer doesn't appreciate me because of X. And as someone who's gotten nothing, who has gotten a pizza split amongst four people, whatever it is, I think at the end of the day, I still pick myself up, do a good job, and I hope that it's appreciated. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, well, I didn't think of it either ways when you mentioned about the numbers, but yeah, I think that the offices that are having that morning meeting and discussing what your daily production goal is, what your monthly production goal is, what the percentage of that was that you went over or under. Some offices are really open about that, those numbers that are talked amongst their staff, and other offices do not mention it at all. That if you are mentioning it and you're seeing these numbers in this two, three, $400,000 range for an income of a practice a month, and you have a dental assistant that is averagely making, 40 to $55,000 a year, then it's probably doesn't come across great if something isn't recognized. I think it's something small, even if you average, I don't know, if I had to think of a number, $50 a staff. If you have 5 assistants or 4 assistants or 10 assistants and you are $50 in, then it's a great gratitude moment. But I also see things substantially less. On the other side of things, in my personal perspective, is the fact of like I always am trying and I always am reminding myself that any small gesture I'm thankful for. So John and I both can resonate with we've worked in offices that have done absolutely nothing, and we've been in offices that have done a little. And this is also in relation to whether you work in a small practice or if you're working for a corporate company, that on what, your corporation probably isn't going to do for you as an overhead because there's so many of you. But then, do you have to, or do you think that you should expect your personal doctor at that practice to do something for you? So, uh, but of course, it's all over social media. Last week, we, as instructors at Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy, we really appreciate all the hard work that our dental assistant students have done in the past 2.5 years. So, doing just a small gesture last week, we brought cookies to class and just some treats and hot coffee, just a small appreciation of our token. On the other hand, there's always this format of thought of, I don't want an item, I want to raise. Keep your pizza, keep your snacks, keep your Stanley Cup, keep your flowers, keep whatever. I mean, we see offices. I saw offices last week gift flower arrangements, Stanley Cups, gift cards, lunches, days at the salon or spa. What else did you see, John? I'm trying to think of some other things.
I saw, you know what, I think from a social media standpoint in a private group that, and this is something I can completely relate to, was handwritten cards, very heartfelt. Hey, you have come a long way. You've done great work since you've joined this practice. I couldn't do it without you. I think that, whenever there's this back and forth with assistants and dentists and hygienists, it turns quickly to you're not a provider, which I think is one of the most insulting things that someone can say to an assistant. And at the end of the day, yeah, we know we're not providers, but we're attached to a provider who is producing the most in the practice. So that's where I think this attitude of you can't do it without us comes from. And, dentists, they kind of, turn their nose up at that and they like, who do they think they are to talk to us like that? But I think unfortunately it's this circle of mistrust that comes from that kind of talk. The second you say something, oh, I'm not doing, why do I always have to do the hygienist instruments? I work with a hygienist, drives me nuts. First one out the door. And then, of course, the next day, whenever I come in, whose instruments are in the ultrasonic that need done? Meanwhile, I stayed 10 or 15 minutes after, and I'm just like, I'm not doing these instruments. I'm not doing it. Like, she had plenty of time. She chose to leave early. I'm not here to pick up her slack. And it's kind of like, well, you're in sterilization, you should do it. Well, I'm not in sterilization. Like we don't have a full-time sterilization tech. So, but when you say something, it's kind of like, oh, I'm a provider. I've been told that before too, that hygienists are like, this is the only practice I've ever had to work at that, I've been expected to do my own instruments. I'm a provider. It's like, where is this coming from? But unfortunately, it's like when you tell people, hygienist and dentist the whole time, you're a provider, you're important, you're special. And then you tell this other group who is, hey, we're all a team, right? Like everybody wants this teamwork, but then at the end of the day, they're kind of pushing the other little guy to the side. It only adds to that animosity of the perception of, oh, the assistant's not that important. So then you do have these assistants 20, 30 years in say, I didn't even know a dental assistant recognition week even existed, let alone get anything, you know?
Yeah.
So they're kind of to the point where they're like, I'm just going to show up and do my job, and it is what it is. And it's sad because it's almost like a broken spirit.
Yeah, and I think we're just human nature that we like to have that sort of even just a small recognition. Now,
Yeah.
mind you, there are some of you that are going to be listening, doctors, dental assistants, hygienists, or those that are not in the dental field that have the personality that do not need or feel or want that recognition. So it is one of those moments of our personalities are all different, as we're all very well aware of. But let's be honest, I mean, outside of dentistry, when you do something for somebody else and you completely repeat and you're repetitive doing something for somebody else, a small token of recognition is usually very humbling. That just like you said, that small card of like, hey, thank you, I really appreciate your help. When you're volunteering for maybe an organization and they provide coffee and donuts, I'm game, because first of all, I love obviously to help out an organization and anything that I can give back. But of course, just a small appreciative token of appreciation goes a long way. We're always saying, uh, you know, thank you for helping me out, or thank you for covering my day, or, it's, on the other end of that, sometimes we work for offices that are recognizing and appreciating our staff all the time. So, we recently had a class and we had a dental assistant tell us that their office buys them lunch 2 or 3 days a week. Remember? So,
Oh yeah.
and I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I
mean,
don't,
I'm like,
I'm sorry, come again? Uh, so, in that regard, I think you have to be mindful of, well, as, maybe I work for an office that is always showing me an appreciation. That my doctor stops and gets a coffee once a week or once a month, or I personally work in an office 1 day a week. It happens to be on Thursdays, but every Monday the doctor orders lunch for the staff. On a Monday, there potentially is around maybe about 20 people there. So I'm not there, but I can't complain that it's not a day that I don't work. I do know that it's still happening on that, you know, but then we get into, oh, it's not ever what I want to eat. It's always, yet again, pizza's always a go-to. Pizza, burger, or hoagies. You're never going to please everybody.
right.
We can't please every palate to a certain extent. So,
Yep.
with that being said, you kind of do need to be mindful of what you're always being shown as that small token of appreciation as well.
Yeah, let's this is great stuff. I love talking about this. I love hopefully opening up someone's mind to seeing that other side instead of just always, oh, I can't believe that I was done dirty like this. So why don't we pick this up on the other side of the commercial break? So we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. So we'll be right back with this episode of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. All right, welcome back to this episode of Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. We've wrapped up with our sponsors here. So we are talking about Dental Assistant Recognition Week. Amanda was just going over some fine points as far as being recognized all the time. It's not necessarily just that week. So, she was making some excellent points about what happens in some of these offices on a weekly basis. What do you think, Amanda?
I think as well, if you get something that you're just not, if you think it's sort of this slap in the face moment, like this is all that they could come up with, uh, or it seems too superficial to you in regard to, you might as well have just kept your $5 or $10 or $1.50, whatever it may have you. Uh, that I do think it's respectfully in the moment of, uh, you know, maybe talking to amongst your staff members on a personal level. But this is also where we're seeing, and naturally in our social media world, that like you're taking a photo of something and blasting it all over social media about how appreciative you are with a small superficial thing, when someone else never gets recognized in any shape or form. We all know that from an office perspective, that financially there's this mathematical equation of how much production is brought in, how much our overhead is. And then, how much in the sense we could give back to staff. So there is that calculation that we know happens in an office. Uh, but um, social media can blast things on a different level that obviously could get back to your office as well. That's not going to come across that great of you showing how frustrated you are with how little that you maybe received. So works hand in hand. It works hand in hand. Keep in mind, in the sense of, I always think as well that as last week, well, there was Dental Assistant Appreciation Week, but there was also Dentist Appreciation Day. So, it has to be, I feel, played on both sides of the field on a certain level to show that appreciation. What do you think?
I think so. I think it's tough that, you know, it's funny how, last week it fell on Wednesday, right in the middle of the week. And I've seen it fall on Saturday, and then appreciation week starts on Sunday. So there's times when, people say, "What are you doing for your dentist for National Dentist Day?" And a lot of times assistants are like, the same thing they did for me, nothing, you know. I think that sometimes you want to step up and be the bigger person. I don't think you should do it necessarily to get something better in return. I think if you want to do it, if you like working with your dentist, I think that, you can easily get a very small um, project. You can do something yourself for $5 or $10. Um, Christmas time, they always have those ornaments in the mall you can buy and get it personalized. You can always save it for dental assistant or dental National Dentist Day. There's just so many things that you can do, to just something small to show that you that appreciation. So, but don't do it necessarily thinking, oh, I'm going to get this for for the dentist so that I can turn around and get a bigger gift. Um, I have worked in places before where um, it wasn't necessarily Dental Assistant Appreciation Week. It was another time, it was a holiday, and everybody got $50. Okay. Now, coming from a private practice where I would get $500, that was obviously a big change, but it was still $50. And I was still appreciative. Well, when a lot of people left that meeting, they kind of gave them to it as staff meeting. Everybody left that meeting literally out in the hallway, complain, I can't believe these cheap dentists, fit blah, blah, blah. Guess what we got the next year?
Nothing.
Goose egg, you know? So it's almost like that had to be taken away for them the next year to get the $50 again, for them to appreciate and not saying anything. So it definitely put it in perspective of, and this was a place that continuously did $50. So it was almost like the doctors were kind of, oh, well, we gave them 50. No, granted, it was a big staff. It was 10 plus assistants, but it was also a big staff of dentists. So the dentist, it came out to probably $50 a dentist to put in to give everybody $50. It was kind of like a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's almost like you have to have something taken away to realize that, oh, I did appreciate that. And, $50, it's, you know, I mean, it used to take my family out to dinner, but that's not the case anymore. But I mean, whether it's a half or a 3/4 tank of gas, or even if it is 3/4 of dinner, it's still something that, hey, they at least showed an effort, and they do appreciate you. Now, one of the posts I saw last week, I was telling you this morning, was we saw a bag of popcorn, and on the bag of popcorn, there was like a message written out that said, we're just bursting at the seams to have you as a member of our team. And the comments were wild. It was, I cannot believe you got a bag of popcorn. Now, about 20% of the people were kind of like, be grateful we got nothing. So it's almost like you have 20% of the people that are like, hey, I'll take that 19-cent bag of popcorn. And I would say 50% said, put it in the microwave and burn it. Just let the office reek of burnt popcorn.
Like, oh, sorry, I forgot to turn off the button.
Yeah, just put it on for 10 minutes and walk away. So, you know, once again, I think it comes down to seeing both sides of it. Were you appreciated? Were you not? What is even a realistic expectation of being appreciated? You see these videos all the time on social media. A waitress comes over at the end. They're like, how much do you want for a tip? Meanwhile, they have all this cash out, give us a number. And, there's a lot of humble people out there. They're kind of like, I can't say a number, you know?
Yeah.
And you see them give the waitress 500 or $1,000, and the waitress breaks down and cries. And then they tell the waitress, you could have said anything, we would have given you 5 or 10,000. But it's like, at the end of the day, some people are so humble to even think like that. So what is even your expectation of a good recognition appreciation week? What do you
Yeah,
think, Amanda? Like,
that's a good spinoff too, to think like really put that number in your head of what would be acceptable. And also think of like what kind of staff do you have? 3 assistants? Do you have 13 assistants? Do you have 23 assistants if you're working for a big office? I mean, I don't know how many offices have that many staff, but I mean, you have to think in realistic number here. But also, when you were saying about dentists recognize, a dental assistant recognizing or just giving a thank you something to the dentist for last Wednesday for that recognition, even if they did nothing for you, I always stem back, and this is my mothering coming out, is be the change or be the example that you want to be. That stems as well as, some of our staff that are doing skills that are just not correct when it comes to maybe our sterilization that we're always talking about. But if you're always doing it the right way, that maybe someone will take your action into consideration. That, you know what, Amanda, every birthday, she's bringing that staff member a card and, I don't know, a scratch off lottery ticket or their favorite candy bar. And oh man, maybe she's always doing it. Maybe I really should think of something to do something small. So always think of your own representation of yourself. I think that's important. I know that that's definitely something that carries me through that moment. My husband works his place of employment 20 years in. He got a can cozy.
oh, wow.
I mean, in bulk, those things cost probably 30 cents,
Yeah.
you know? So, school teachers, let's think of some things that never, basically for the most part, never get any sort of recognition unless it's from the parents. From the school district side of things, your local school teachers of your public school system are not getting any bonuses either. I know that could bring up a whole other platform of like, well, they have holidays off and summers off and things of that nature. But there's so many avenues of that a lot of people are working really hard every day and really are getting that bare minimum of recognition. But on the other hand, that even a small accountability of recognition is very great, very grateful. So, regardless of whether you got something small, if you got something big, a small gesture of going to that person that personally got that for you and giving that face to face thank you is very, very appreciative. And I think goes a long way as well.
Yeah, and now that you say that, it does make me think about whenever this comes around and Christmas comes around, I do like to go into these groups and say, hey, make sure you say thank you. Like just say thank you, because I do hear dentists giving very generous bonuses at Christmas
Yes.
time. And
Yes.
they say, I didn't even get told thank you. Like I have a staff of 8 and 2 of them didn't even say thank you, because I don't want to say it's expected, but there is a sense of an expectation. But then there's also kind of like, oh, well, they should do this anyway. They should do more, you know? So, so unfortunately, what happens is these 2 people are probably going to ruin it, because I guarantee the next year they're going to be like, well, why should we give everybody, a $2,000 bonus for Christmas when, these people aren't even appreciative? We might as well just knock it down to 1,000 or 500. Like
Mhm.
these are some of the things that happen because yes, they did have a great year. Like that's the whole point of a business, to have a profitable year. But then they turn around and try and show you thanks, and then it's just a slap in the face. You can't even, appreciate it and say thank you. So, sometimes humans are their own worst enemy in that regard too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I don't know what the next recognition is. I love a good old birthday cake.
Hygienists have an entire month.
Hmm,
Yeah. Yep. Maybe October. I
I
don't know.
think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's October. So, just something to keep in mind that maybe you don't get along with your hygienist, but hey, now's a good time to plan something small and be the bigger person, right?
Absolutely. Be that example of who you want everyone else around you to be.
Yeah.
It eventually will pay off.
Yeah.
So uh, we hope if you didn't get recognized, that John and I can only say thank you from the screen or Spotify where you're listening to our podcast. But we personally are dental assistants as well. So we do truly understand that hard work and the time and all of those background tasks that you're doing as a dental assistant that patients don't see, that sometimes your office manager doesn't even see, sometimes your doctor doesn't even see, that you're doing all of these things behind the scenes, along with naturally assisting the doctor, cleaning rooms, helping with patient education, doing our sterilization, our ordering, making sure our autoclave is running appropriately. And, the list goes on and on, as we all know. Don't forget to change your traps. With that being said, we thank you for listening. Continue to stand tall and stand out, and continue to keep your mind open with new knowledge and education. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. And, thanks again for your support. If you have a topic you'd like to discuss or even a comment about today's episode, feel free to email us at cornerstonedainstructors@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, and we'll catch it at the next episode.